Hello everyone, welcome to GATE NPTL. So today we are going to solve a question from the subject psychology. So the question is a 2 mark question and the topic of the question is biological and evolutionary basis of behavior. So now let's read the question. Match the neurotransmitters with their functions. So basically here we have two sets which is A and B. So in A column we have got four neurotransmitters which are acetylcholine, dopamine, serotonin and norepinephrine. And column B talks about their functions. So in column B, in the first option we have movement and pleasure sensation. In option 2, we have sleep, anxiety, and appetite. In third, we have attention and memory. And in fourth, we have arousal and mood. So, based on this both columns, we have four options given. So, let's first try to understand what is neurotransmitters. So basically, neurotransmitters are chemical messengers which are present in our hormones. So which basically transmits the signal from one part of our body to another part. So it is transmitted via our neurons and via our synapses, which is present in the axon of the neurotransmit neurons. So let's first try to understand what are these four neurotransmitters and what are their functions. Then let's come back to the question and try to answer the problem. So first, coming back to acetylcholine. So this is the first neurotransmitter which was ever discovered. So acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter which plays a major role in learning, memory, and muscle control. So the basic function of acetylcholine is learning, memory, and muscle control. So basically, it is present and it acts in both the brain and the body region. So it helps in neural connections during thinking and attention, and it also plays a major role in muscle contractions. So when an individual is having some inadequate level of acetylcholine, it often leads to memory impairments. So a common example which I would state is Alzheimer's. So where an individual often has memory loss, memory impairments, and degenerative conditions. So a common reason why Alzheimer's is happening is based on the less amount of acetylcholine neurotransmitter present in their body. So this is the basic function of acetylcholine. So let's move on and see what is the function of dopamine. So, as many of us know, a common phrase which is used to note dopamine is feel good hormones. So, dopamine is a feel good hormone, it's a feel good neurotransmitter because it is mostly linked to pleasure, motivation, and reward system. So, but one more important thing which we all forget to remember is it also regulates movement. It also regulates movement, learning, and emotional response. Not only pleasure, it is also related to movement. This is also important point which must be remembered. So one common example which is often stated in case of dopamine is Parkinson disease. So Parkinson is basically a movement disorder where an individual faces difficulty in movements. He has tremors and basically he feels very difficult to walk, move when as an individual is facing Parkinson disease. And also it plays a role in depression as it is also pleasure hormone. So an individual having less level of dopamine might fall under depression also. But in case an individual is having excessive amount of dopamine, it might lead to schizophrenia and addiction and an individual facing hallucination and stuff. So this can happen when an individual is having a huge level of dopamine in his body. So this is the function of dopamine. So let's get back and see what is the function of serotonin. So basically serotonin's major function is to regulate the mood, sleep, appetite, and emotional stability. So basically, the role of serotonin is mostly in our emotional response and how our mood behavior is present. So it helps us to regulate happiness, calmness, and it plays a major role in overall mental well-being of an individual. So, a common example which can be stated for serotonin is depression. So, an individual having low level of serotonin is often found to be depressed. So, when there is someone who is facing depression, we can often find them being prescribed serotonin tablets. So, this is one of the common examples of serotonin, and this is the major function of serotonin too. Then we can go to norepinephrine, which is also known as non-adrenaline. So, a common word or phrase which we often use for this is called fight or flight neurotransmitter. So, norepinephrine functions as a neurotransmitter and also a hormone, so which is responsible for alertness of an individual. Let's imagine we suddenly see a dog or we suddenly see a snake. Our body prepares to either run or we should fight back the aggressive dog or something, or either we will run away from the dog. So that instant preparation of our body for that fight or a flight response is done by norepinephrine. So it also, in the mechanism of fight or flight, it increases our heart rate, energy, attention, etc. This is the function of norepinephrine. So in the level of brain, it helps us to sustain concentration and alertness. So in that emergency situation, we will be very much alerted and concentrated, and all our thinking will be to either fight or flight from that particular response or an event. So imbalance in our norepinephrine levels can lead to some mood disorders such as depression, anxiety, and ADHD also. But one basic thing to remember in norepinephrine is fight or flight response. In serotonin is mood. In dopamine is pleasure plus movement. In acetylcholine it is about memory and learning. Memory, learning, and control also. Muscle control. So coming back to the question, so we have acetylcholine, dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. So let's read what they have given in column B. We have movement and pleasure sensation. So movement and pleasure sensation was discussed in dopamine. So dopamine is related to movement and pleasure sensation. Then we have sleep, anxiety, and appetite. Sleep, anxiety, and appetite was discussed in the function of serotonin. So serotonin leads to sleep, anxiety, and appetite. Then attention and memory. So attention and memory, we spoke in which option? So acetylcholine was spoke, and it was a function of acetylcholine, which is attention and memory. Then we have norepinephrine, which major function was arousal and mood. So it comes here. So basically we have PQRS. So P leads to 3, Q leads to 1, R leads to 2, and S leads to 4. So our option is B. So B is the right answer for this question. And for further reference, kindly refer to these materials. Thank you.